Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Dan Does Disney. Tim is over on Zoom. Hello, Tim.
Hi, everybody.
We've got some new scenery. I've decided to do our Dan Does Disney in my usual movie review location, which is the theater here. But that means I forgot to bring the DVD. So, Tim, what are we reviewing today?
We will be reviewing Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Which is a 1959 Disney movie. It is available on Disney Plus. That's how Tim was able to watch it.
Yes.
I have the DVD with a few extras, so we'll talk about those in a little bit. You and I think, had both never heard of this movie until we started doing the list.
No, I haven't heard of this movie, and going forward, there's a lot of movies coming up that I've never heard of.
I'm surprised about this one though, because Sean Connery.
Yes, Sean Connery is in this movie. And I mean, I like Sean Connery, but I wasn't like the biggest fan that I did like a deep dive into all his previous works. I didn't even think all of his James Bond movies.
I think this is only the third or fourth Sean Connery movie I've seen. Like literally, I've seen Indiana Jones 3. I saw Rising Sun when I was in high school with Wesley Snipes, and then The Untouchables and Darby O'Gill. I guess I don't think I've ever seen any other movies. So
you didn't see like Finding Forrester or
no. And the only James Bond movies I've seen have been Daniel Craig.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That hit Connery. Oh no, you had The Rock. You saw The Rock, right?
Oh, wait a second. I did see. You're right. I did see The Rock. All right. So there's one more. I saw The Rock. All right, but still, I'm not. I as well am not an aficionado. But still, I mean, since he died last year, I'm surprised it didn't come up in the conversations or whatever. But anyway, so this was released in June of 1959. It made 2.6 million in North America, and then when it was released 10 years later, it made another 2.3 million. However, the original version had some dialect issues. People were sort of not having the heavy Irish dialogue. So we ended up seeing, both of us, I think. I know the Disney Plus version is, but I think the DVD version is as well, is this dubbed dialogue. So I don't know if that's because the original masters are gone or what happened, but I don't know.
From what I read was that it wasn't even that the dialogue was bad. It was that they used like a certain Irish
like a dialect
that had different words that weren't even like completely like translated to English.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, I kind of read that the accents were so thick that people couldn't really understand what they were saying, but that actually makes more sense what you say.
Yeah, like they would like say certain words that were like, I don't know. They gave an example on the wiki where it was like, hey, they said this, and then they just like dubbed it over with something else.
Okay. Well, yeah. So the versions we saw were the re-release, which is a shame. I always try to find the original versions, but anyway, this was based on a 1903 book called Darby O'Gill and the Good People. And so Disney originally sort of conceived this whole movie during a Ireland trip in 1947. Way back then, it was going to be called, at that point in time, Three Wishes or The Little People, depending on what source you look up. I found both. It's based on a script from the person who ended up writing the film, Lawrence Edward Watkin. It was going to include both live action and animation, which makes sense because in the 40s, that's what all the movies were. That was like the So Dear to My Heart era and the Make Mine music and all of that stuff. So that makes sense. But a full script on that was never completely produced. So they sort of shelved it for the time being. Disney went back in 1956 to Ireland and said, okay, I definitely want to still do this. At that point, it was called The Three Wishes of Darby O'Gill. And he brought back this writer that he had sort of put on hold there, this Watkin, and ended up finishing the movie with him. At the time, Disney also studied Gaelic folklore for 3 months to get some authentic type of things about leprechauns and stuff like that. And then in 1958, the name change became the current Darby O'Gill and the Little People. So as for the casting, Connery was borrowed from 20th Century Fox. He was under contract with them at the time. And then the gal that plays his love interest, Ms. Monroe, she was cast on a 5-year Disney contract. This was the first of those movies. So I guess we'll see her a bunch more in some upcoming features. And then this dude, Albert Sharp, who basically plays the lead, he was retired by the time the film came out, but he was seen in a Broadway show or off-Broadway or something by Disney in the 40s. And he was like, I want this dude. So he brought him out of retirement to do the movie. And apparently, I'm sure you read this, Tim, apparently Albert Broccoli that did the Bond movies, this is how he saw Sean Connery, was like, I think he'd be a good James Bond.
Yeah. If it
so
wasn't
we have that to thank.
If it wasn't for Darby O'Gill and Little People, we wouldn't have Sean Connery as 007.
I know. It's so weird to think. I didn't even think he was that great in this movie, but whatever. We'll talk about that, I guess. But Jimmy O'Day and the other actors who played leprechauns in the movie were never given any screen credit. Walt Disney wanted them to sort of go on with the illusion that leprechauns are real, and he really found these leprechauns. And there was an episode of Disneyland where he actually goes in season 5 to capture the king of the leprechauns, which, by the way, is a bonus feature on the DVD. So I watched the whole thing, Tim.
Oh.
And yeah, he really went all out in making people or trying to make people believe that leprechauns were real. This was a real leprechaun. He captured the whole thing. So yeah, kind of a shame that they never got credit. I'm glad we at least know the head leprechaun's name, Jimmy O'Day, now, because at the time they didn't. There was no press materials about him or anything. So, but anyway, the one song, well, I guess there's a couple songs in here, but the main song, Pretty Irish Girl, was released as a single with Connery and what's her face singing. But and there's varying, thank you. There's varying takes on like whether or not they actually sang themselves or not. Connery maintained throughout his career that he did the singing. So I don't know. I have no reason to doubt him. It sounded like him.
Yeah, and I think what happened was that they recorded other people to dub in there, but they
never did.
They just never did. So I think it's Connery as well, because Connery actually recorded the song for a solo.
In 92 for that compilation.
Music of Disney, A Legacy of Song. So it had to be him.
Yeah, I definitely think it was him. But obviously that is sort of folklore in itself that maybe he didn't do the same. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like him. I think it's him. And then this is another one that had the classic Dell Comics, comic book adaptation that happened that same year. I feel like we're getting a lot of those, the comic book adaptations. That must have been the thing to do, Tim, before the novelizations of the films.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like, you didn't have home media at that time. Like,
right.
Movie, and they would want more of it, or to relive the magic again and be like, okay, well, I can kind of relive the magic by just reading about it in a comic book, and it would do so.
Yeah, I think it definitely makes sense. And then another sort of legacy for this film is that from the show Burn Notice, the main character Jeffrey Donovan plays, he uses Sean Connery's character Michael McBride as his like Irish code name with his Irish contacts, which clearly is a reference to this movie. So nothing though I could find in terms of like Disneyland parks or any rides connected with this or anything like that, like we do with a lot of these older movies.
Yeah, I don't think connected to.
All right, so Tim, let's hear all about the plot of this movie, and then we'll sort of get into our review.
Okay, so you have Darby O'Gill and the Little People. It is adapted from this the Darby O'Gill stories by Hermione Templeton Cavanaugh, and it's actually adapted from 2 books. You mentioned one, and then I think it was a second book was just called More Stories of Darby O'Gill. So
okay.
Yeah,
I knew there was like a whole series of them, but yeah, that was the only one I saw the title
of. So you have Darby O'Gill and his daughter Katie live together in a small Irish town on Lord Fitzpatrick's estate, where Darby is the caretaker. However, Darby spends most of his time down at the local pub telling tales of his encounters with leprechauns and their ruler, King Brian, instead of taking care of the grounds. After being fired, Darby doesn't want to tell Katie that his position has been given to the dashing younger Michael McBride. Darby then stumbles into the land of little people and comes face to face with King Brian again. This time, he winds up getting the best of King Brian and outwitting him and capturing him to get his 3 wishes. But before he makes his wishes, he convinces Brian to help get Katie and Michael to fall in love. This would keep Katie living at the estate. So he wouldn't have to really break her heart of moving her out of the estate. However, this brings Darby bittersweet and unexpected results, for there are a few things standing in his way. One, a devious widow who wants her boy to be the new caretaker. Second, that son, who is the local ruffian named Pony, is also
That's right. It's like Pony Boy from The Outsiders.
Yeah. So Pony's also interested in Katie and is kind of like squaring off against Michael a bunch of times. And lastly, in the form of a deadly banshee. Does Darby O'Gill have the luck of his Irish on his side? We'll find out.
Yeah. How about that cat too?
Yeah.
He's got a cat, and we love cats, although he's sort of a villain in this movie. Kind of. Yeah, I really liked this movie. I feel like they first of all, the technology, which I'll talk a little more about too on the DVD, but the things they were doing in this movie, I was pretty blown away by visually.
Yeah, they were using forced perspective for most of the leprechaun effects, and they hold up well because it's forced perspective. They don't get dated. If you go back and you watch Elf, which also used forced perspective to make Will Ferrell look like he was big compared to all these other people, it doesn't look bad when you watch it now because it's forced perspective. Because
same with Lord of the Rings. They filmed a lot of the Lord of the Rings stuff forced perspective.
Yes. Sometimes they had little people stand-ins and stuff like that. But you can tell sometimes when they're swapping out, be like, okay, that's definitely right there. So they were doing that. They did the chroma key technique to make the banshee.
That actually doesn't look that bad either, though, compared to certain other things.
Yeah. I mean,
from that era.
Little bad, but it also still looks very creepy.
Yeah. But even something like the thunder that strikes, I thought looked pretty cool. I mean, you have to think about like, okay, yes, there were obviously no computers at the time, or there were, but not for stuff like this. I think that's an effect that still actually looks pretty solid. Now, if it, side by side with, Tenet, okay, maybe not, but, I think it looks very, very cool, and better than a lot of things we've seen from this era. Like you and I you weren't there, but you've seen the Planet of the Apes before. I just watched all 5 of those Planet of the Apes movies. Now that was 10 years after this. And I think some of the effects used here honestly hold up better than that.
Yeah, and I think they used chroma key or some other similar technique for the Death Wagon, and I thought that looked a Banshee, and that they did some really great shots there of like him getting into it, like because it was kind of just like a black silhouette, but then took a shot from inside with the door opening, and then he was inside and he was looking out and like the rain on the window. It was pretty good. And it was
Yeah, I
pretty
completely
dark.
agree.
That whole sequence was really dark, and you're like, that it was pretty unexpected. I did not see that the direction that we were going for this movie. But yeah, I thought the effects held up really well for a movie that was filmed in the, what is this, 59 still?
59, yeah, it was filmed mostly in 58, but yeah, released in 59. So I mean, we're talking now 60 plus years ago. And especially compared to some of the, now 20,000 Leagues obviously was like amazing. We've talked about that. But a lot of the other, and Shaggy Dog actually had some interesting effects as well. But a lot of the other like recent live action ones, you know, whenever they've tried to do some kind of effect, it either doesn't look that good today, or they clearly didn't really have their heart in the movie. Like clearly this was a passion project for Walt. He obviously spent a lot of personal time with this story, and I think it actually shows in the end product.
Yeah, definitely. We didn't talk about cast. You kind of went over the cast a little bit. The guy that plays Darby O'Gill, you didn't say his name, but it's Albert Sharp.
Albert Sharp, yeah.
Movies like Royal Wedding and Brigadoon. And like you said, he came out of retirement for this, and I'm glad for it. I thought he was a great lead for someone who's been, I think he was retired for a good 3 years prior to coming out of retirement. Like, obviously,
yeah, I think he's the best actor in the movie. I mean, the Leprechaun's also good, but yeah, I thought he was great, and I'm not familiar at all with him.
Yeah, like I looked at some of his credits, but I think probably Walt, like you said, he saw him on doing stage plays, so I think he had a lot longer career doing stage plays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then Janet Monroe, she plays Katie O'Gill. She actually won a
Golden Globe, right?
Golden Globe for most promising newcomer, which they don't have that award anymore. But she won. Like you said, she had a 5-contract deal with Disney, but there's only 2 theater movies after this one, so it was only 3 movies that were going to be released in theaters. The next one, Third Man, that one, she's in that, and then she's in Swiss Family Robinson with everybody else talking about.
Well, she died very young though too, so maybe she died before the contract could be fulfilled.
No, I don't think so. She did do another like a 2-part movie for Magic World of Disney called The Horseman.
Okay, so maybe that counts.
I guess that counts, but then after that, I couldn't find any Disney movies, and there's definitely like a good 6 or 7 other movies listed on her filmography.
Okay, well, maybe she was difficult or something, and Walt let her go. I don't know.
Maybe, or maybe. I mean, also, it seemed like she. I mean, she's obviously a Irish actress, so maybe she would just decided to go back to Ireland, and they weren't really filming anything.
Yeah, could be. And then of course Sean Connery.
I thought his acting was fine. This is one of the few movies that you'll see Sean Connery in where he's not using his Scottish accent. He has,
which was a little off-putting, to be honest, just because we know him so well doing that.
I think that's why it is a little off-putting, because he's using he has like a slight Irish twang in his accent, but it's not Scottish, and you're like, okay, so it is off-putting. I think his performance was anything to write home about, but I don't think it was bad.
No, it was fine, but I think for somebody to watch that performance and be like, that's my James Bond, that I find extreme. I mean, it wasn't that good.
Well, I think it was also, he was young, he was handsome, he could charm people. I think it was kind of like that.
Yeah, I can't deny that. I mean, he's always been known, to be a heartthrob from way back. So that makes sense. But yeah, acting wise, I thought it was acceptable. It didn't blow me away like some of these other people.
Yeah, and I understand why Janet Monroe won for best promising newcomer, because I was like, oh, she definitely has acting chops.
Yeah, she was real good.
Yeah. I wrote down who plays Pony just because I hate the name Pony. Kieran Moore played him. I couldn't really many other well-known movies that he was in, but
yeah, I didn't really recognize him from anything. He was, classic jerky guy that wants the girl.
I didn't write down the actress name. I should have. That plays his mother, the widow, who's trying to get him to be the new caretaker. I forget who it was, but I did see that.
Yeah,
he lived to be 101.
Is that right? Wow. I don't know either. Yeah, I mean, I think. Oh, was it Estelle? Yeah, Estelle Winwood.
Yes,
is that her? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought this could be maybe like a little bit racially insensitive or what have, not racially, but whatever. And I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that on Disney Plus it does come with that classic warning of depictions might be whatever. No, okay. One of the articles I read said it had it on there. Maybe it did at one point and they took it off. I don't know, but
it might have. But I think I don't think it did, because I would imagine that I noticed it. I would have noticed it, but
I feel like you would have if they had it.
I might have hit play and then started writing down some stuff, and didn't really. I don't really focus on the opening credits that much, because there's usually just
so many minutes of them.
There's so many minutes of them, because they did all the opening credits were in the day. You have all the opening credits, and at the end you just say the end, and you're like, okay.
Did you notice though? This is one of the very few Disney movies we've done that did not have any kind of sing-songy theme song to the movie.
Yep.
It just started with the instrumental. It showed us, the village and whatever, but there was no Darby O'Gill, we didn't hear any of that, which was surprising.
Yeah, and then Walt wanted to make sure that people thought leprechauns were real, so it gave a little thank you to King Brian and his people for helping out on the movie there.
Yes, I have some mixed feelings about that. I feel like in the movie's fine, but I feel like you got to give people credit somewhere. But I mean, Wizard of Oz didn't either. They just said, and the Munchkins as themselves. Yeah. It's like, all right, that was, I guess, the time period where we did stuff like that. But I'm glad somebody somewhere wrote down this guy's name so we at least know it now, Jimmy O'Day.
Yeah. So like you said, there's two main songs in this movie. One is called the Wishing Song, which is what Darby O'Gill sings with King Brian as he's trying to get him drunk and trick him into staying up until the morning so that he can capture him.
Did you sense that was maybe improvised?
I don't know.
One of the articles that I read said that it could have been, but they weren't sure. And it did sort of seem like if they were talented enough, they could have just sort of riffed on that to each other, because the words didn't really rhyme. It definitely seemed like they were making, at least the characters were making it up on the spot. Whether the actors were, I don't know, but it could be.
Yeah, well, that was the premise, that they were making up a spot, so it felt legit. I imagine someone wrote a song. Maybe they added a few things themselves. It could have possibly, but I don't know. I felt it definitely felt like an improvised song, but I felt like that's what it should have been, because that
was the point. Yeah, I guess I don't hear a lot of Disney saying like, okay, go improvise, people. I guess we don't hear that a lot.
Yeah.
But
and then the second one, like you already mentioned, Pretty Irish Girl, was a single in the UK in '59. I thought that was fun when Sean Connery was singing it by himself at first. It kind of almost reminded me of Kirk Douglas in the she shanty.
Yeah, it did have that vibe to it for sure.
Yeah.
But I liked it. Yeah, I agree. I think for the, I mean, it's not really the theme of the movie, but it is sort of the main song, I guess. Yeah, it was. I liked it. It was fine.
Yeah. So,
and what about, we should talk about the director, because we've been with this man before, Robert Stevenson, who we've mentioned several times, and then we're going to see him doing Mary Poppins later, very famously, of course. But he did, what are the ones he's done so far that we've seen? Did he do? I think he did Treasure Island, maybe.
No, he did.
Let's see if I can see it here.
He did Old Yeller, I believe.
Oh, that was it, Old Yeller.
And then the one before that, was it Giant Tremaine?
Yes, Tremaine. Yes, Tremaine was the first. Oh, and then he did also the Zorro, few episodes of the TV show Zorro that we'll mention here briefly later. But and then a bunch of the ones coming up: Kidnap, Absent-Minded Professor, Son of Flubber, Mary Poppins, That Darn Cat, The Love Bug. Yeah, he was a Disney legend. We'll talk about him a lot. But I think he did great directing here, because a lot of this was sort of between the Force perspective and between some of the other things like having to know where the characters are meant to be looking, like if it's Darby O'Gill looking down, he had to have that sort of the marks there. I thought he did a really good job with that.
Yeah, and they used a lot of good camera angles and tricks to make you believe certain things were real.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, I think stuff like this is great to look at now, because it's just not dated.
Yeah,
not for the effects anyway.
Yeah, and honestly, I knew that they were using forced perspective for most of it, and I'm like, okay, but then the scene with him in the land of little people, where he's walking through them, I don't know how they did that with
forced they go into that in the feature on the DVD. And actually, I'm gonna put in the description of this video a link, because I found just that feature on YouTube. It's like 11 minutes long. You should definitely watch it, Tim. It's really interesting how they did some of this stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, then it definitely held up for those. Oh, and I was like, this isn't forced perspective, or any type of forced perspective that I could think of that they were using. But they do get creative. And then I also read that Albert Sharp didn't know how to play the fiddle. And
yeah, I saw that as well. They had someone's hand actually come out from behind him, right?
Yeah, and I actually read that right when they were doing that scene. I was like, wait, what? And I rewinded, and I could not tell that it wasn't him. So
yeah, isn't that awesome?
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think story-wise, I was engaged enough, but the effects and everything else that's brought to the table just brought it even way more up for me.
Yeah, and obviously they had that the one guy doing the background paintings, because I mean,
yep, classic matte paintings again.
I could tell maybe a couple scenes, but I'm like, okay, it's supposed to be somewhat fantasy anyway, so I'm not going to dock it for that.
Right.
But I like the shots of them climbing the mountain. I'm like, I don't think that's a real mountain. But I mean,
yeah. Well, they actually go over that a little bit in the featurette as well, about how they made the movie, and they actually take you through how a matte painting is even created, which is very interesting. I could have watched an hour-long making of on this. It was only 11 minutes, unfortunately, but yeah, you'll have to watch it, Tim. It's called Little People Big Effects, and like I said, you can find just that feature on YouTube, but it is on the DVD.
Okay.
But it was very, very interesting. And okay, so the story, though, I liked the story a lot. The whole wish thing is always appealing to me, and the way they did it here with the fourth wish kind of trickery, and then having him stay up all night, and they added some things of lore in there that I wasn't super familiar with, but maybe could be real, since Disney spent all this time on the researching of the folklore.
Yeah, or it could have been pulled from the book, the source material as well.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, the story it is complicated. But it's not too complicated that you can't follow, and everything's enjoyable. Everything kind of works. The love story works. Um, the scenes with the leprechaun and everything, it just all works.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the love story was a little basic. That may be like one negative I have about it, but it's a very small negative compared to everything else.
Yeah, I mean, but I feel like it definitely fits for what Darby wants for Katie, and how he is a loving father, and how he kind of feels heartbroken that he has to tell, he can't even do it, that he can't even tell Katie that they're going to have to move out of the state house.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that sort of threw me off, I don't know what the home picture on Disney Plus is, but the DVD is a picture of Sean Connery and Janet Monroe. There's no leprechauns on it. There's a shamrock, but like Darby O'Gill's not in it. The leprechaun's not in it. So I really thought they were going to be like the focal point of this movie. I assumed he was Darby O'Gill. So there's that marketing trickery again. So
got Tonka.
Yes, yeah. Right. Tonka all over again. You're right.
No, I don't remember it, but I think it had Connery, Albert Sharp, and Janet Monroe all on it. And
okay.
I think it had a rainbow on it as well, but
yeah, there's no rainbows in this movie.
Yeah.
But I guess the leprechauns nowadays are associated with rainbows because of Lucky Charms, I guess, or whatever. But all right. Well, anyway, I guess real quick, I'll talk about the DVD before we wrap on the movie. But so in addition to this Little People, Big Effects, which again, I'll put the link in the description there. It looks at all of the Peter Ellenshaw matte paintings, and it talked not just about this movie, but how he created matte paintings for Treasure Island and some of the other things. And it was very interesting. Like I just assumed it was a guy painting something and then draping it in the background. It's 100 times more involved than that. But they talk about the forced perspective. They explained some of the effects specifically. Like for example, when they had the rabbit or rabbit / leprechaun in the bag, they actually had like an air controlled puppet in the bag that they would sort of work from behind the scenes to make it look like something was moving in there. So just little things like that. Without too many spoilers, I'll tell you that scene you mentioned with the big dance and stuff, there were a lot of mirrors involved with that.
Okay.
So yeah, you can look at a little deeper into that. But so there's that. There's the Disneyland episode, 48 minutes long, about I Captured the King of the Leprechauns. And then there's also an 8-minute Sean Connery, not really retrospective, but it's called Mr. Connery Goes to Hollywood, and it's basically about his early years, and it features interviews with him in the back then present day. I think this DVD's maybe from like 2008 or something. So, and he talks about Darby O'Gill and all of this stuff. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well.
Yeah, I guess I should have figured out they were using mirrors, because I just watched a whole thing. I'm watching like the Imagineering.
Oh yeah.
Plus, and they were talking about the Haunted Mansion and how they use mirrors to create the ballroom scene and how they have ghosts and stuff like that. So.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. That was, I guess we'll get to that in about 10 years or so.
But, well, not movie, but for the ride itself. Like.
Oh, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Which would be like the same time period as this, I think, roughly.
Yeah, because that was one of their earlier rides for sure. So yeah, I liked this DVD. The only thing is, I think the film is in a different aspect ratio than it was in theaters, which from what I read anyway, which I don't like that, because again, we're not getting the original, full product, but whatever. I don't dock it too much for that. So I would give the DVD itself, like a B+, A- kind of thing. Some more extras would have been cool, but for a movie that nobody's heard of, for them to have any extras, I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And the movie itself, I would give an A-.
Yeah. Definitely A-. I think maybe if someone were to watch it now, that's not a big Disney historian or a movie buff, that maybe they would get like a B plus worth of entertainment from it. But for the fact that the effects still hold up well, it's a obscure movie that is very entertaining. I give it, for the cultural significance that this has, I would give it an A- as well.
Yeah, I think that's totally appropriate grade. Yeah, I was blown away by really how much they were able to do with just those small amount of effects that they continued to use, and that stuff always fascinated me. Like back in the 60s is when they had on TV, everybody had like their twin and stuff, the Patty Duke show and everything, and just always looking for sort of that seam, like, okay, there's a crack in the wall, or there's this. I was hard pressed to find some of the spots in this movie where they really actually split the screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I recommend this one, Tim. I think you do as well. This one blew me away.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Darby O'Gill and the Little People, which probably I would say is most people, check out Disney Plus.
Yeah, I'm glad Disney Plus has it. They certainly don't have all of the ones we've been talking about, so I'm glad they have this one. And then we've decided now. So next up would be that one Zoro movie. We sort of decided last week off air that I think we're just not going to do either of these Zoro movies.
Well, I read about it a little bit more, and this one that's supposed to be next, Zoro the Avenger, it was never released in the United States as a movie. So right. I think we skip over that one. The next one, Sign of Zoro, was released in the U.S. whenever it follows it, and that is on Disney Plus.
And it's on Disney. Yeah. All right. So maybe we do that one
because it was released in the U.S. The other one that's supposed to be right now, Zoro the Avenger,
right.
is on in the US. It's not on DVD. It's not on Disney Plus. So it's impossible to actually watch it and grade it. I mean, we could.
Yeah, I mean, the best I think we could do is like figuring out which episodes went into it and watch those from my DVD. But like even that, you're still just at that point grading 3 episodes of a show, not the movie that it turned into. So yeah, I'm with you. Let's not do it, which means the next one will be Third Man on the Mountain, which I have on DVD.
I actually looked, and I don't know if it was on Disney Plus or wasn't on Disney Plus at one point, but now it is. It's on Disney Plus.
Wow.
Or maybe
like 2 weeks ago we said it wasn't.
I know. Maybe I just thought it wasn't because I've never heard of Third Man on the Mountain. I swear I looked at one point, but it is on there, and
okay, awesome.
Yeah.
And then the one after that is Toby Tyler. I think that is also not on there.
That is not. I looked. I went through the next probably like 20 movies, and it's probably about half of them are on Disney Plus and half of them aren't.
Okay. Well, I just by looking at the names, I bet I can figure out which ones aren't. Like I'm sure 10 Who Dared are probably not. Probably Nikki Wild Dog of the North is not.
Nope.
Because all these other ones I've heard of, Parent Trap, Absent Minded Professor, Swiss Family Robinson, those all have to be on there. Pollyanna. But all right, so
Kidnapped isn't. And I was looking at some of the other Fred McMurray ones, and like Bon Voyage, which I think is his next one, that's not on there.
That's not till 1962. So he was definitely in one before that, I think. Well, maybe not. I don't know, but I think
but I guess that's the next one that he's in.
Yeah, but Kidnapped, I believe I do have on DVD as well, so we can swap that around if Disney Plus doesn't get on the ball. But next up for us will be Third Man on the Mountain. Tim, thank you for joining. This was a really good one.
Yeah, pleasant surprise.
Yeah. All right. We'll see everybody next time.